Good morning. So welcome to all of you joining us live for Cyber Strategists Summit 2021. I hope everyone is staying safe and well. So before we kick off, a couple of housekeeping rules. All attendees are in listen-only mode. If you have any questions for our speakers and panelists, please use the chat box. This webinar is being recorded and a link will be shared with attendees upon request. Also, feel free to engage with us on social media. You can see our social media handles on the screen. Okay, let's dive straight in. And before we start, let me take this opportunity to thank our sponsors. Our signature partners, Checkmarks, Spire Solutions, Help AG, Nangel Solutions, Vision Tech, and our event partners, Microfocus, Reddington, SolarWinds, Texala. Cyber criminals love a good crisis, and COVID-19 is a perfect storm. They're taking advantage of all the COVID-19 related disruptions to come up with new and menacing ways to drag us down. Last year, we've seen an amazing jump in the number of cyber attacks in the form of phishing, ransomware, DDoS, and other malware. Last year, UAE has reported around 250% increase in the number of cyber attacks. WHO has seen almost a five-fold increase in cyber attacks targeted at its staff. One of the reasons for this alarming jump is the accelerated pace of digital transformation. Suddenly, you have more connected devices, more services on digital platforms, which is why it is important to think about cybersecurity as a key element of digital transformation, which is exactly the topic for our first presentation. So let me invite on floor our first speaker, Shahab Siddiqui, Global Head of Cybersecurity at Petrofac. Shahab, the floor is yours.
With the pandemic, suddenly it became a critical requirement. So we all are working from home, collaborating on Skype, Zoom. In fact, this conference itself is happening on Zoom. The perimeter, which was already vanishing, suddenly is vanishing at a much faster pace. And cloud adoption, virtualization has accelerated like anything. This poses a unique challenge to cybersecurity team because now the attack surface has increased. A lot of legacy system which were never designed of thinking in mind that they will be ever exposed to internet. So they had no security consideration. But unfortunately, due to remote working, many organizations had to open up legacy system and application to external world. There were a lot of hasty digital transformation projects in many organizations without cybersecurity in mind. Your user data system, they are almost everywhere now. They are no more within the enterprise network. Traditionally, the security controls that cybersecurity team or the security team usually has, those are not enough because they generally monitor what's happening within the enterprise network. But the user and data are no more within enterprise network. Visibility, which was already a problem for most of the organization or cybersecurity team, it has compounded. So in all, digital transformation creates a lot of challenges for cybersecurity team if not done in a planned manner. And cybersecurity is an area in many organizations, digital transformation are being done by multiple teams. And cybersecurity will not even be involved in those digital transformation discussion. Or possibly they would be hooked up late into the phase before going live or going to production. And this makes job of cybersecurity team quite difficult and also increases the cost of digital transformation because now you have to work backward to fix the issues that cybersecurity team finds or detects. So Basically, if you don't have a digital steercom, I would say form a digital steercom where all digital projects are discussed. And if you already have a digital steercom, make sure cybersecurity team is part of that committee. And cybersecurity should be involved right from the idea of phase of any digital transformation project. And cybersecurity should be one of the key success criteria for any digital transformation project. Now, there are key elements or areas where cybersecurity team will have to play a major role. And we cannot talk about digitalization or digital transformation without discussing cloud security. This is one area where it's almost synonymous with digital transformation. And many people mean cloud adoption when they talk about digital transformation. So cloud security is a shared responsibility. Many times team believes that, okay, we have outsourced this, or the cloud vendor will take care of cybersecurity responsibility. Yes, depending upon the model that you have, PaaS or IaaS or SaaS, the responsibility, cybersecurity responsibility will differ. However, it will always be a shared responsibility. Another mistake or assumption that people make is, if it is a SaaS product, cybersecurity is or security is given. However, configuration issues can happen anywhere, even in cloud, or even the cloud vendors can do that. In fact, we have seen that happening for big players like Microsoft, where engineers do make configuration mistake in cloud deployments. Also, many times we take vendors' promises, cloud vendors' promises on face value. We should always validate it, validate the security controls the vendor has, do your own testing reviews, and make sure whatever vendor is promising in terms of cybersecurity is actually present. Especially cyber resilience or even DR is something that we take as given. However, in many cases, not all cloud vendors will have same level of DR, and it's better to dive a bit deeper and understand how they will achieve DR or high availability. Not everything is gloomy in terms of cloud security. There are a lot of opportunities as well. Standardization and templatization is one thing that you can do to security using cloud. It's very easy to have standard cybersecurity control over your cloud infrastructure. Visibility is another problem that cloud solves to some extent, because now everything in the cloud is visible to you. Another impact of any digital transformation project is on data, because any digital transformation project will involve movement of data, analysis of data, or integration of various systems. And unless and then you end up with having data on physical devices, on cloud. You will have data in databases, data lake. It will be structured, unstructured data. So you will be left in a maze of data, all sorts of data in all sorts of places. Unless you discover which data resides where and you classify them, you won't be able to protect it. So I think the key thing is to classify the data and to have a data security strategy. Identify your sensitive data. It might be financial data, it might be PII data, and either encrypt them or mask it depending upon the use cases. We can leverage technologies like DLP for prevention of data leak. CASB is another area which you can leverage to protect data leakage in cloud or from cloud. DRM is another technology which you can leverage to share data securely, ensuring you can remove the access whenever wanted. Next area is secure development. In many organizations, when digital transformation is happening, there will be significant software development also happening, either by the vendors or by in-house. And it's very important to set the requirements clearly at the beginning of the project itself, or from software development. Because you need to give these security requirements to the developer in the beginning of the phase itself. You also have to train the developers to make sure they understand your requirement clearly. Devops is one area where cybersecurity team has to play a catch-up game, which means we have to do automated testing and do continuous testing in each phase of the development, not just at before go live or moving to production. Also, you can do static analysis, review only the codes that are changed, and you will have to use automated tools here. But this is an area where cybersecurity needs to play a catch-up game. Secure DevOps is a quite extensive topic. Probably will go in deep in some other session. When I'll move on, when digital transformation is happening, one key problem is visibility. And I think that's the biggest challenge for any cybersecurity team, because user data asset is everywhere, and traditional detective controls are probably not tuned or configured to ingest telemetrics from cloud or from users who are at home. And we have to leverage these cloud logs or a lot of tools that various cloud provider provides to increase the visibility of user data across our environment. Also, UEBA, user behavior analytic, is another area which we can leverage in today's world, where users are working from everywhere, and perhaps it can be used to detect bad behavior before it leads to cybersecurity breach. Cloud, as I said earlier, provides an opportunity to have more visibility. Also, AI and ML have moved on from being buzzword to being actually used in a lot of cybersecurity tools today, and you can leverage these AI or machine learning algorithm to help your cyber team detect true incident in the sea of false positive. Another area where cybersecurity team needs to play a key role is identity and access management. Privilege access and thus keys to your kingdom may now reside with users who are outside your network. PAM solution, PIM solution are something that the organization should explore and implement. MFA is another key control that I would say is almost mandatory. Single sign-on, risk-based MFA are some of the key technologies that you can use to provide seamless user experience while retaining the security in place. Zero trust is another area which is moving from being a buzzword to actually being implemented in the organization. I think that's a very important framework to implement, both for digital transformation as well as generally in today's threat landscape of increased cyber attack. I think zero trust is a way forward. One key area to look into is compliance and regulatory requirement. While you are on your digital transformation journey, the business may want to bring all sorts of data into a single dashboard. However, you have to be aware of your local laws and regulation. Uh, if these digital transformation involves PII data, you have to be aware of privacy laws like GDPR and how it impacts your organization. Many countries have data residency laws, and you have to be really careful when you do all this integration, move data from one region to another region for transformation of business processes. How are you getting impacted in terms of data residency laws? So I would say compliance and regulatory requirement is one of the fundamental areas to tackle and to be aware of in your digital transformation journey. I think in today's world, data breaches or cyber attacks have become more sophisticated than ever. If you see past year, one thing that is clear is no matter how big an organization you are, you will eventually get breached. And it is all about building resiliency in any digital transformation program that you implement. And if you bring cybersecurity too late in the game, your digital transformation, even though you may go live with the transformed process, it may not be resilient in today's world. So I believe cybersecurity, if done right, can ensure a secure digital transformation journey for any organization. That's all for today. If you guys have any question, I can take that.
Yeah, so if you have any questions for Shahab or other speakers, please use the chat box. And meanwhile, let me ask you a couple of questions, Shahab, if you don't mind.
Sure.
How closely do you work with the digital team at Petrofac?
Very closely. In fact, we have a digital steercom where we have people from cybersecurity team, we have people from infra team, and we in fact review all the digital projects, even the ones that probably we are not going to go live with, and we then see, okay, which of these projects impacts which area of cybersecurity. And we are very much involved from the beginning.
And you mentioned identity and access management, right?
Yeah.
Are you seeing identity theft as the biggest threat as a CISO?
Yes, but I think MFA is one control where it mitigates to a great extent any identity theft. Yeah, of course, identity theft is happening left, right, and center if you see all the breaches. But I believe use of MFA, and especially with the concept of risky sign-ins, and you challenge the MFA only when somebody is logging from a different geography or different asset, that basically helps mitigate the identity theft.
Okay, I have a question from Khalid Jalal from Garmco, Bahrain. Hi, Khalid. How mature is data protection law in GCC? How do you compare it with other regions?
Yeah, I think the maturity level is low in GCC. In fact, all the requirements are driven by your operations in EU region, and basically it's driven by GDPR in most of the organization, because you have operations in EU or you are dealing with data related to EU citizen. However, I think it's catching up, but still, I mean, we have a lot of skill gap in this area, and it's an area where there is a huge understanding gap, I would say, between the legal team, cybersecurity team, and who is responsible for what. I think this still is a maturing area.
All right. Thanks a lot for your time, Shahab. Thanks for that wonderful presentation. It's time to move on to our next speaker, Jude Pereira. So Jude is a seasoned entrepreneur with more than 30 years of experience in the field of cybersecurity. After setting up UAE and India as primary markets, he has recently moved to the UK to cater to the European markets. He's an outstanding communicator with the ability to discuss business, commercial, and technical concepts to all audiences, including executive level decision makers. And he's going to talk about digital workspace in a COVID continuum. Jude, take it away.
Thanks a lot, Jeevan, and good morning to everyone. I will just share my screen. So a wonderful topic given to me by our members, a digital workspace in a COVID continuum. And we all hear about a digital workspace. We talk about a digital workspace, but how do you really go about executing one? And what's the need? And what's the necessity? What's the need of the hour at the moment? So as we can see, the biggest question that is being challenged to ask to all of us is, where do you want to work post-COVID? Do you want to work full-time remotely? Do you want 3 days, 2 days, 1 day? Or are you ready to go back to the office? And I'm sure all of you know that the last option is really not an option for most of us. Gartner has predicted that responding to COVID-19 has essentially forced organizations to really evolve and drastically and immediately move on to quicker steps, which are by far 5 to 10 years. So what does that mean? They got to adopt and implement technology, which would potentially be, we would use in the next 5 years now. And this was a huge task, and simply because situations have changed and this pandemic has left us all lurching. So why work from anywhere is here to stay? Again, quickly, I've just put some stats. 95% of employees say remote has high impact on employee retention. 66% of employees say they would switch to another job for ease. 600 billion global businesses losses due to workspace. Even here in the UK, you're going to have only 40% of workforce that will really be going back to the offices. 60% will have the luxury of working remotely or work from home. But the biggest challenge to all this is the lurking cyber attacks that are waiting to ambush. And we've seen that in the last couple of months itself. We don't have to wait to see what's going to happen in future. Some of those I've highlighted on the screen, where you can see there's been a 260% surge in cyber attacks in India, kind of $90 million attack with the SolarWinds hack, 5.2 trillion because of cybersecurity threats, not forgetting the latest Microsoft breach as well. I'm sure we are all aware of all the attacks. And what is really the cause of all these attacks? Because it's hasty implementation of remote work, hasty implementation in terms of how we will deploy, how will we architect our networks to be able to be resilient and competent for work from home. So the question that's really slamming most of the Cisos at this point in time is the need of the hour is cyber transformation. Okay. And what do you mean by cyber transformation? We're all aware of digital transformation, but cyber transformation is something that works in lines with digital transformation. So what does cyber transformation really mean for work from anywhere or work from home, as they say? So it's being able to provide access to our employees, our suppliers, our vendors, any third-party organization that's managing us. So it's about being able to provide them access at any time, from anywhere, from any device and any application. And all of this has to be rugged and secured. And of course, to do this, yes, we can all do this. But the multi-million-dollar question that slams us is, where are the budgets? Because the budgets have become half or even 1/4 in most of the cases. So let's look at the curve. Why isn't our current day infrastructure really helping us post-COVID? Simply because of the challenges that I've displayed. The IT infrastructure that we deployed was meant for work from offices. So our perimeter has crumbled and crashed. I don't have to go into details for that. Today, we need to install on-demand applications. We need to have detailed audits and recording and maybe monitoring as well of all the users that are connected both locally via the LAN or via the WAN, as they say. Allow access from unpatched or non-compliant devices, because we are in the era of BYOD. So we should be able to allow our employees access literally from any device, from any place, and access to whatever they have to access based on their privileges. But that opens a window of challenges, because if we are going to give them access and they are allowed to access what they can, then how do we restrict them from copying? How do we restrict them from uploading confidential data to social media platforms, screenshots, camera takes that can happen? Another challenge is bandwidth, okay? Now they're connecting from home. You no longer have the 1 gig to the desktop or the 10 gig to the desktop. They're purely dependent on the local service provider. Okay, emergency access for alternate devices in case something happens to the laptop crashes, different errors at different patches, different updates that create problems to the laptops. What's the alternate means of them to connect? So because of this, efficiency and performance certainly drops. Keep data always backed up. Backup from remote PCs is a big nightmare as well. Okay, so application delivery to non-Windows devices. So these are some of the challenges that I've outlined, or the concerns that we have from building a rugged work from anywhere infrastructure. So what are CISOs looking at this point in time? CISOs, CIOs, head of departments, owners of business units. What they want ultimately is they want to be able to provide their users a digital workspace, a cost-effective digital workspace. Okay, a digital workspace that at the end of the day, you can provide your users with virtual applications or virtual desktops, contextual and zero-based access, data protection for BYOD devices. So this is what most of the organizations are looking to implement. And of course, strong authentication at all given times. The question to ask is, how do we go about this? Where do we start? What do we do? Okay, so currently, if you see, we just had one of our wonderful leading CISOs present to us, and he said the challenges are with multi-cloud environment and your data centers. So if you look at this one diagram, at the moment, users literally connect. One is to the data center, one is to say Microsoft, for Office, so or to Azure, and then the second could be to AWS. So what happens to this one user is he literally has to have 3 usernames and passwords, or he's literally accessing 3 networks at the same time. A big challenge as far as the end user is concerned, because he's got to remember all his username and passwords. He's got to remember, which username and password gives him access on which platform. But the bigger nightmare is for the IT team. That's the bigger challenge the IT team has. At the end of the day, how would the IT team know what exactly this user is doing? Where is he connected? What is he allowed to access? What are the privileges granted to him? And what are his geofencing or geolocations? So let's move on to understand how we can overcome these things. So typically, to overcome this challenge, what most organizations have done is what I call like a VPN explosion. So most of the head of department, business owners, CISOs have all given all their end users VPN access. This is fantastic because quickly the users can connect to the data center and the user's connected and he can carry on with his work. But there are a lot of challenges with providing VPN access, because the first most important thing is once the VPN is established, your local firewall or your data center firewall has no control over this VPN access. So literally, if you get a smart geek here, he can literally, kind of DDoS, do a DDoS, an SQL injection, or if he's smart, he can literally bring down the application as well. Because what really happens with the VPN is your session terminates directly on the application, on the server, on the platform within the data center, which is really very dangerous and very risky. That's one side. The second part of the story is how secure and how clean is the laptop? Are there any viruses in the laptop? Is the laptop patched? Is it lately updated? Because whatever happens here on the local device, it's going to travel through the VPN and get into the data center, which also possesses high risk. Okay. The third and most important thing is the performance. The most important thing with VPN is, if you see, most of the users always complain of slow performance on the VPN. And this is not because the server or your data center is weak or your configuration within your data center is bad. It's simply because once the VPN is established to the data center, you have a lot of internet traffic going through the VPN. And there are a lot more challenges, again, with the username and password. One common thing I literally ask most of the CISOs and most of head of departments is, what have you done to secure your VPNs? And they're like, we've got the username and password, which is integrated to Active Directory, and we've got two-factor authentication. And the question I ask is, what if someone shares that username and password and that OTP with me, in any other geography country? Will I be allowed access to the data center? Yes or no? And you would want to agree with me that most of the time you would be allowed access. You literally have no technology to really strap you and lock you down there to see from where you're really logging in. So to overcome all these challenges, what people have done is, I call like a security explosion or a solution explosion. They've gone ahead and deployed, zillions of solutions. Okay. Gone ahead and deployed all these solutions, because now the question the business tells IT is, we got to deploy a digital transformation and we got to deploy it now. And IT says, if you want to deploy it, then this is what I got to do. Okay. And I call it the blueprint. So you got to have technologies that take care of the endpoints. You got to have technologies that take care and secure the data center. And then you got to have multiple technologies that secure the access. And this is really a security explosion. But still, for example, the commercials are put on the table of the CISO, and the CISO says, well, we need digital transformation. We need our users to access from anywhere. I don't have an alternative, but we've got to deploy all these solutions. And then at a high level, if you look at it, your cost per user really goes through the roof. And I'm talking about both on-prem deployments, cloud deployments, different types of deployments. So approximately you're looking at like $1,300, $1,500 per user because of all these solutions that they got to deploy, including XDR and malware and all the latest buzz that's there in the market. But even after the CISO approves this budget, you know what's the next big nightmare? The next big nightmare, even after the budget is approved, is with having all these zillions of solutions, or multiple solutions as I call it, the most important thing is that there is no centralized management. There is literally zero visibility as to who's doing what, where, and why. Okay, there's no control over what data is passing on through the VPN, and so on and so forth. I'll highlight on the first two. So we had a very critical government organization in Abu Dhabi where they knew who the user was, what changes he made to the server, but there was no way they could map the user to that particular session, to that particular act that that user did. And why? Simply because the SIM was implemented in the data center, but the user is out. The user is working from home, and there's no way on earth can the SIM get that real-time information to do that correlation and literally map the user to the session, to the act. And that's going to be a big daunting task as far as security is concerned. So what we tell you as Nangil is that we will provide you all the above features in a single license and at half the cost that you see, with the highest level of security. So even if your budgets are slashed, we are here to save you, and we are here to work with you without compromising on technology. So you can literally have a couple of solutions or multiple solutions redundant at save cost and still have the highest level of security. So let's see how we're able to achieve this. So the value proposition is from the solution is you get domain-based or geolocation-based access. And in the next slide, I will explain to you what do we mean by that. You can literally have different privileges of access. You can map the user access using two-factor authentication. And this is not just the standard two-factor authentication, but multiple features and correlation that helps us to strap the user to the geolocation and the geography. We would have device type, where we would know from which IP he's logging on, which VPN IP, MAC address, device make, model, and OS fingerprinting. Okay, which will also help us to strap the user to the device. And then we look at the access. Now this access is not a standard VPN access, but it's like a span, which is called like a secured private access network, which can give you different levels of access. You can provide within that same license, you can provide your users either a VDI access, an RDS access, or a hybrid, or you can literally have applications published or applications virtualized. All that is possible within this access. From the data center point of view, we can have device lockdown, port blocking, application whitelisting, blacklisting, blocking of peripherals, data protection, blocking of clipboard, blocking of dual homing, and even watermark, so to add there. So huge amount of functionality that is all available within one license. So currently, yes, you may look at each of these blocks that I've explained and said, oh yes, we have this feature. But again, as I said, you have multiple solutions that are helping you to meet all of this. What we have to offer is a single pane of glass, a single solution, a centralized management that's really going to take all this pain away. So in the cyber digital transformation world, what you'll have is, so currently, if you see, all your data resides with the users in the user machine, and that can cause serious harm and serious breach. So whether they connect from LAN or they connect from WAN, the risk is the same. So the first most important thing is get rid of all the data, all the applications from the local devices. Let these devices be naked, let them be stripped down. The next important thing is you have a high secure gateway that is there in your data center. You have all your applications published in your data center. You have all storage in your data center. Okay, so now if the users need to access the applications and they need to access the storage, they can seamlessly access it from the device using an HTML.5 approach, or you can use it like using a client server approach. So now if there are any attacks to these applications or any attacks here, it's not going to happen because all the data resides within the data center. That's the first important thing. The second important thing is that your access terminates on the gateway. It does not. So even if this is an IT user or if he's an admin user, he need not know what's the IP address of the file servers, the database servers, the application servers. All he's got to have is the right privileged access to be able to access the data center, and all the security will be there around it. Okay. And this is not only prevalent for your data center, but this is also prevalent for your cloud apps. So if you have cloud-based applications, currently you would see that the users are accessing the cloud directly, whether it's Office 365, whether it's Amazon, whether it's Salesforce, whatever applications are there in the cloud. So you typically have one infrastructure to secure your data center, and then you have another infrastructure to secure your cloud. So in our solution, you need not have this. Your cloud infrastructure can be accessed via your data center directly with loads of security around it. Okay. So let's look at the zero trust model. So everyone talks about, the zero trust network access and the zero trust model and architecture. So how have we used the zero trust model within this framework of what we have to offer? So at the end of the day, this user needs to access the data center, or he needs to access the cloud environment, and he needs to access it with certain privileges. So typically today, what happens is the user is provisioned with an Active Directory or LDAP or ADS. We literally check username and password, an OTP sent, and the user is allowed access. But for us, because it's a zero trust model or zero trust model, we literally have to validate every user in a deeper manner. So we have a contextual policy engine where, with the help of the contextual policy engine, we not only look at this username and password for this user, but we look at what is his identity, which department is he in. So based on his department, we give him the privileges. Based on the privileges, he's able to access only those solutions which he has access to. The rest of those applications are all blacklisted. So this is from the user contextual point of view. Next is from the device point of view. So we need this user to have this level of access only from this device. So we need device identification and classification. So we can literally say he's allowed to access only from the Microsoft tab or from this HP laptop or this Lenovo laptop, which has got CPU ID so-and-so, it has got motherboard so-and-so, it has got WAN IP so-and-so, VPN IP so-and-so, geolocation so-and-so, and we can have trusted feeds to validate all of that. So this is called the fingerprinting patent that is orchestrated for this authentication. And I'm proud to say I've literally seen no security vendor to this day have this level of patent authentication, authorization, user authorization, or user access in the market today, which is very surprising, including Microsoft. Microsoft themselves use this technology for validation. So if the user authentication goes through all of this, only then he's allowed access. But hang on, we've got to enforce two-factor authentication as well. But now this two-factor authentication is a bit different, because now when the two-factor authentication is thrown to the user, the solution or the technology built into the solution validates and makes sure that the OTP, whether he received it on his phone or he took the OTP from the token software, both the geolocation of the OTP that was dropped and the geolocation of the user, both are in the same region. If that is the same, then he's allowed. If not, we deny him access. So deep grilling as far as the user is concerned, because today, the main threat that we have from our network is all about the user's device, and the access. Coupled with that, you can have endpoint scan and endpoint control, which could be like device qualification added to the zero trust model. You can also have federated access if you're a government organization, or if you're a university campus or a banking infrastructure. You can have federated access if required as well. So what would be the recommended architecture is single access. So now the user's access to the internet, he connects to the data center, and regardless whether he connects to the data center, he connects to your multi-cloud environment, he has his real-time digital workspace with complete security around it, and it's seamless for the user to use, still with all deep controls of identity and access management, two-factor authentication, privileged access management, session recording, auditing, metadata, all of that correlated, huge dashboarding reports, all from one platform. So this is what we achieve. We help the client to have, or the user to have, a digital workspace, and he can access the digital workspace from literally any device using any method, whether it is a VDI access, an application publishing access, an RDP access, with multiple factor authentication, contextual access to understand who, which, when, and how, and it is completely secure. So what are the benefits? It's seamless enterprise mobility, enhancing productivity and making IT more agile, protecting business and data during access, audits for identity and access, reducing the cost, and we are proud to say that we've got several clients where this solution is already deployed within UAE and a couple of other GCC countries as well. We enabled BYOD on the fly, and finally, we protect all your apps with the zero trust model. Thank you very much for this opportunity, and looking forward to working with any of you.
Thank you, Jude, for a wonderful presentation. And it's time to move on to our next speaker, Bhavani Singh, who is the principal solution architect at Checkmarx. So at Checkmarx, he covers client enablement, solution architecture, professional services, technical account management, and customer success for India, Middle East, and SAARC countries. So Bhavani has more than 11 years of experience in information security, application security testing, business continuity, governance, and compliance. Very impressive resume, Bhavani. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I'm sharing my screen. Let me know when you guys can see it.
Yeah, it's working.
Available in the presentation mode, or you can still see the presentation itself?
We can see the presentation, that's fine.
Okay, so I'll directly jump into, I know that we're running a little bit late, so thank you for the introduction once again, Jeevan. It's really a pleasure to be here with you once again. And as we know, today's topic that we've selected, DevOps, DevSecOps, is something which we have been hearing from quite a while now, and recently during, let's say, I will say the high risk time of this pandemic, we saw lots of changes, lots of trends has been changed. So we thought that, okay, this topic would be really something which is going to be close to the heart of many guys. So how we can manage the risks with DevSecOps. To start with, we will see what is the definition of DevOps and DevSecOps. We'll see the difference, how it is defined. The software has vulnerabilities. Of course, we have to accept that. We'll see that why they have those vulnerabilities. And finally, how to manage those risks. So from DevOps to DevSecOps, the issues and how we can manage in this fast moving world. So everything is very specific to AppSec and DevOps practices that we are following. Starting with the first thing, the definition. The collaboration between development and operations, hence DevOps, it's straightforward. The idea here is that as everyone wants to move very fast, so we are automating the processes around all the stages of SDLC. Is it a build, testing, or deployment in the production? So it's something with automation when it comes into picture. So how it helps is it helps in faster delivery, increased reliability, the stability of the solutions is much, much higher than we expect because it is going through that automated process. Also, the resilience is quite high. And the expectation is that security features that we want them to be there, or we expect many times the security requirements are implicit. So how we can ensure that, okay, all those implicit requirements are catered during the SDLC phases, even though we are on DevOps. So that is from DevOps perspective, and how we can take care of security part in DevOps at multiple stages of development. We need to take care using some of the techniques. For example, when the developers are writing the code, then it is moreover from a learning perspective, the root cause that they should be writing secure code, the code which will not have any open gaps or security gaps, or in other terms, we can call them vulnerabilities. The second is from a source code perspective, when the developers are checking in the source code into the source code repositories, then how we can take care of one of the aspect there. So at the time of checking. Then comes the build stages. Many build management solutions are used by different organizations across the globe. So can we take care of that open source component as well, along with source code? Because that is something which is the new reality, as we have seen that in one of the forums, that this is the new trend in the market, that open source components are going to be used much more in this arena. And finally, during testing stages, I'll say that typically during the testing stages, security testing comes into picture. And as per the traditional model, everyone was doing dynamic assessments or penetration testing. As you can see that if we are at this place and we are doing security testing very late in the software development lifecycle, it becomes a lot of overhead. It becomes very difficult to monitor. And if there are any pressing issues, or let's say high level vulnerability or security gaps which are identified, the entire process has to go through the complete flow. Some changes can be made during the coding stages, then check in, then build, and then again you will perform another round of testing. But what if we can take care of these things early in the life cycle and it doesn't reach till there? So that is the key message. So we saw the definition of DevOps and DevSecOps. So I'm moving on to why software has vulnerabilities. I think this is a very important question, and I'm sure that many times you have thought about it, and I know that many of the reasons are also there. But in last let's say 1 year, we have seen that there are a couple of more pressing reasons with the technical advancements that we have seen. The first one is speed, and the second one is the complexity is increasing. So slowly, the world is moving towards microservices. World is moving towards making, or let's say breaking the application into smaller pieces. So it is easy to maintain. It is very easy to, let's say, get the new features. Nobody wants to wait. Everybody wants that if there is a new feature, a new compliance, or a government regulation, then it has to be there either with the choice that, okay, we want to have something new, or by the compliance or the pressing needs from the government. So both the things can be there in the place. What we saw that everyone wanted right now. Nobody wants to wait for a new thing. If somebody has seen something new, then they want that their product also to support that. And we have seen that especially in cases of Amazon or anyone who is into e-com model. So obviously new features should be there. As you can see with the number itself, that Amazon is delivering or deploying their code into production every 11.6 seconds. That means that every day hundreds of builds are getting into the production, and that's something which is amazing. We need to take care of the security part with the delivery or deployment itself. The second is Facebook, 50,000 builds across the globe in a day on Android, and I'm sure that all of us we are using in some or the other form, like Facebook, in some or the other way. There is an interaction. If we are not using it on daily basis, but some interaction is there, maybe on weekly or monthly or once in a while. So we can't uh, stay away from this. Netflix, the demand of Netflix has increased in recent times. So everyone is trying to release their newest creation, I will say, because these are artists. They deliver it on OTT platforms. So that's something which is really amazing, and they are deploying new code within hours. So multiple deployments in a day, not storm, as we see. And then complexity is also increasing, as I told you, that many systems which used to be monolithic, very big solutions in one go, now they are breaking those solutions, and small solutions are working as a clock. So a clockwork, that every small thing should work perfectly the way it is and should be able to adopt to the newest features. Typical examples would be the US Army. The combat system is running on 63 million line of code, something which is very unique, but this entire system works on multiple silos. Then Tesla, JP Morgan, Google itself, 2 billion line of code just to give a search result of a simple string, maybe just one word, and they give you a result within few milliseconds. So that's something we can see. The idea is the speed is the most important factor. So the complexity is, as we can see. Then we also seen a trend that the developers community, it is increasing every day, because we want to have newer developments, we want to have newer features across the industry. The trend is, and as per the source, the Battery Ventures Open Cloud report, 70% of the developers, they say they are not properly trained to write secure code. Developers are increasing because we want newer features, we want newer platform, we want to adapt to the latest technology, we want to break the big applications. And with this increase, if they say that they are not trained enough, then that's something which is really alarming, that we need to train them so that we can take care of this issue at the source itself. So that is something, one of the reasons that we should know that why software has vulnerabilities or security gaps, because the training is inadequate or not complete. So we saw speed, complexity, and training. By taking DevSec approach, it will give you more confidence in how we can do it. Let's look at it, that what is the buzzword. We have been hearing about this buzzword from ages. Shifting left, but what about DevOps? How we can do it with the security in DevOps? So I already told you about the reason why. The trend is shifting left from the testing perspective. Gone are the days when the testing used to be done during production, but with the DevOps approaches, it is shifting more towards the developers arena. So a lot of testing is done during those stages. Only the configuration or implementation testings are there at the end. The second item is security gates. Security professionals, obviously, with the let's say increase in their work, as they are getting more and more reports, more and more newer developments, and more applications. Generally, the team is very small, and they cannot be parting every time there is a new request. So it becomes difficult. And the idea is that if they see any pressing need, any security gap, they will just stop the developer, don't proceed. In a way, developers, they will say that, okay, we want to build fast, we have automated, we have done all our functional testing, and there is some small security gap, and when we go to the team, they will just stop it. So it's very important that we understand that this tussle between the developers who really want to work and security professionals who want to take care of the overall security posture of the application, how they can work hand in hand, so that a secure application can be deployed and given across to the end users or the customers. So security professionals can help with a couple of best practices they can adopt, and developers can also respect that security gaps which are identified or reported, because of which their solution is being denied to go ahead. That is something which can be taken care of. The next and this one that is delivery are not delivered. I'm sure that need delivery with the developers or the devs are being delivery. They can't actually because they do use lines very critical to them. The second, developers own the application.
Sorry, Bhavani, you were breaking up.
It's
Can you,
the
something wrong with the audio at your end?
No, it's perfect. Is it okay now?
Yeah, so you're kind of breaking up.
Is it perfect now?
No, still little issues with the audio there.
Just one second.
Yeah.
Give me a sec. I just changed my connection. Can you?
Yeah, it's perfect now.
Okay, my apologies for that glitch. I'm sorry. What I was talking about is the conflict between AppSec and Dev that we saw in the last slide, and I'll just repeat in few words. The idea is that the developers who are working on a tight timeline nowadays they own the application. It is not possible that keeping the security away from them. It should always be available with them too. They should have the owner so that they can find out those security gaps early before they go to the security experts and say that is it good to go or not. So that is something we need to take care of, and the solution should be designed in such a way that they can own it. Moving on, that how we can manage these risks. This is the question, and that I think that's the agenda. We have defined what is DevOps, what is DevSecOps, and then why the security vulnerabilities are there. So how we can maintain or how we can manage these risks are typically straightforward. There are three key items that should be considered. The first one is integrating with the solution, the security solutions as much as possible. So if the security tool solutions that you guys are using, if it is not able to integrate during SDLC, and it should be seamless, please note this keyword, and that is seamless. It should be simple and straightforward. If it is not happening, then obviously you will spend a lot of times in solving the hiccups which are because of this integration. So it's very important that you have multiple touch points and integrate as much as possible, right from the building or during the CI/CD processes with the source code repositories, which are the code management platform, the source code repositories, and to empower the developers to do their own dirty laundry by giving them ID plugins. So the solution should be able to cater at every stage of software development lifecycle. So that's something which is very important. So integration is the key word. The next key item is automation. So we know that speed is something which is the driving force of DevOps. So it is very important that we integrate with the CI/CD pipeline as the development is progressing toward automation. That okay, all the functional tests which used to be manual, now they can be automated. Why not? We can have security steps in place which can be automated too. So it's very important that we pay an extra attention to automate the CI/CD process from end to end, including the security solutions which are in use and they can take care of it. The third item is the root cause. The problem is that developers are not trained to write secure code. If you will provide them a reactive approach in those cases where if the security gap is reported, they can quickly go through a capsule course and mitigate that risk, as well as a proactive approach in which the developers are going through those specific trainings, which should not be lengthy, but which does not require their engagement for 3, 4, 5 days in a classroom for 8 hours a day, because that is not something which is let's say digestible, or it is not something which is sticking for a longer time, but again in a smaller form which they can take as they have some time and as they want to learn. So this is the problem, that if they know how to write secure code with certain level of training, then we should be able to mitigate the root cause. The additional two factors that can be taken care of is the open source. As I told you in a couple of slides ago, that open source is something which is picking up. If something is available out of the box, the developers don't want to reinvent the wheel. They want to use those functionalities. Instead of writing the code again for the same thing, they can just use those libraries. It's very important that you take care of the compliance as well as the security status of these open source components, which is part of your application, which the developers are using seamlessly or across anything and everything which they want to. So it's very important that you take care of that. And finally, as I told earlier as well, that integration in every stage so that you can do assessment at every stage and find out if there is any security gap as soon as possible. The second thing is your security policies. If you say that no and medium issues should go into the next phase, then apply those policies so that nothing moves from the source code report to the build management solutions. If that policy is there, that if there is any issue which is reported, so based on your policy, it will not move on to the next stage, and the developers will fix it. It should not be like this, that you apply that policy at the end of the entire development, which will just delay the process. So the architecture, the design should be in such a way that the policy can be applied at every stage, and at every stage there is a checking mechanism. The last and most important thing on this one is performing threat modeling. Though it's a very tedious exercise and there is a, let's say, a lot of hawa around it, is that okay, it's a very difficult task, but knowing the trust boundaries and the interactions between different processes, if we know that okay, what is this trust boundary and what could be the risks, it will become very easy. And this is a very basic building block that developers can understand, and a handshake in a secured manner would be possible. So doing the threat modeling, generally it is missed or skipped because it's not very easy, or lots of people don't know how to do it. That is something which can actually take care of this entire DevSecOps in a very standard, or let's say a very easy way. Finally, developers, it's a part of be part of your developers day-to-day, let's say, processes, what they are doing. If you know as a security practitioner, it will become very easy for you to understand their life, and then you will be able to collaborate with them collectively, and it will become very easy that you will be able to harmonize the DevSecOps over the time. How checkmarks can help here is that we have a customer base of 1400 plus customers across the globe, and we are also the Gartner Magic Quadrant leader last year for consecutive years, with the footprint, or let's say presence, across 70 plus countries. What we offer is from a solution point of view, the integration touch points at every stage, and that includes from a learning point of view, Checkmarks as a solution which can help developers learning reactively whenever there is a vulnerability which is reported. So reactively as well as proactively during the coding stages, obviously with the plugins available for the IDEs, which are very popular in the industry. Then at the check-in stages, for the source code repository, seamless integration, so you can schedule the scans. So if you're having a sprint size cycle of 2 weeks and you want to scan on weekly basis or multiple times a week or every day, when the workday ends, next day morning when the developers come back, they should know that what are the security gaps. So you can schedule those assessments with the automated check-ins, with the build management solutions, with the CI/CD processes. So those integrations should also be possible. You can see that with the raw source code analysis capability, CXO solution can analyze from day one of coding. So we are not just talking about shifting left, but we are literally shifting left to the day one of. So if you just write one line of code, so you should have the capability to analyze the source code. We saw in one of the slides that the source code assessment is the key item, and that is something which can be taken care with this solution. Then analyzing those open source components, that is possible during the build stages as the developers are getting smarter and smarter. So instead of downloading those open source components, they give a reference and these are downloaded during the build stages. So from the build stages itself, you can analyze those open source components from security gaps perspective as well as the compliance perspective with the software composition analysis solution, CXSCA at this stage. And finally, on the next gen possibilities, as all of us know about the dynamic assessments and penetration testing, what if we can automate many of those tests also by reusing those functional testing efforts which are already qualified and part of the software development lifecycle. So that is possible with the next gen solution, the interactive application security testing solution with from Checkmarx, which will reuse the effort by putting an agent on top of web application server and identifying the security gaps. All in all, you can see that at every stage, a touch point which can help you in knowing, identifying, and mitigating the risk is possible with the solutions that we offer in making the DevOps truly DevSecOps, so that you can not only find, but you help in remediation as well as training the developers in general. So that's all in all that we offer. I see there is a question here.
Yeah, this one quick question. So again, from Khalid Jalal, many may not be developing in-house as they may be using ready-made solutions like Oracle EBS or SAP with annual support fee. In such a scenario, the security becomes the responsibility of the respective principals. Is there any law to sue them in case those systems are hacked?
Actually,
Security gaps in those systems.
Yes, and I can tell you that I know about both the organizations that you named. They are using Checkmarx in their entire flow, and the best part is from a law of land perspective. Although there are a couple of laws available which are taking care from a generic perspective, but it's very specific to your needs. I think that is something which can be part of the MSA that you're signing, but that is only for the COTS application. For example, I'm using PowerPoint. So if there is any vulnerability in PowerPoint, I have to wait for Microsoft to release a security patch, which I'll apply. And they release such things on monthly basis. But from an organizational perspective, if you're using, let's say, if you're creating a form which is interacting with your SAP application, then that custom development, you should assess from security point of view, as they will not be taking care of it. So for those specific technologies that you just mentioned, there are possibilities that you have to go with a hybrid approach where you ask them for in the MSA a minimum compliance report, the standard that you're looking for, as well as any custom development that you are doing, you can take care of that with the different offerings that we have. I think there are some other questions too.
All right. I think we'll have to take it maybe after in the interest of time, we have to move straight into the panel discussion. So thank you, Bhavani.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, sure. Let me just invite our panelists on the floor. I'm joined by Nikolai Soling from HelpAG, Mohidin from Spire Solutions, Shabir from Vision Tech, and two leaders from the user community, Prince Rana from Alfardan Group and Ali Asghar Bahari from Sulega Hospital. So let me just get started, right? Rethinking cybersecurity for the digital world. So my first question is for Nikolai. I know you have hard stop. Is cybersecurity keeping pace with the digital transformation initiatives in the region? Or is cybersecurity falling way behind?
I think it depends a lot on the specific initiative that you're looking at. I think there's certain organizations who's really understood that security is a day zero problem for digital transformation. And when I say a day zero problem, it actually means that you should not embark on a digital transformation journey within your organization unless you believe that you can do this in a secure way, and unless you kind of think security in from the beginning. And the reason why is that if you fail to do that, and if you're putting more and more dependency onto the digital systems to govern how you do business, and you have a failure in those systems, actually what you end up doing is that you're disrupting your ability to do business. So that's one of the reasons why when we talk about digital transformation, security is really on the first page of the vocabulary around digital transformation.
All right, so let me get an end user perspective on this. Maybe I can ask you, Prince. I know that you have a lot of digital transformation initiatives going at Alfardan Group. Is it a challenge to meet the security needs of all these initiatives at Alfardan?
Right, Jeevan. At first, thank you very much for having me in the panel. And let me just start with, I want to start with one step back regarding your previous question regarding the digital transformation. So digital transformation is, at this point of time, it is not an option or it is not a choice. It is a mandate if you want to survive or if you want to continue in the business. And especially during this pandemic, right? So many of the organizations are out of business, and now there is a need for their survival. So the speed and the acceleration of the digital transformation is multifold during the last year, right? And especially, I would say now we is a growing with the advent of a digital transformation in terms of the value, in terms of the volume, of which is a greater security risk at this point of time. And the cyber criminals are also keen to exploit the value through the theft, through the fraud, through the ransomware, and there's a many other form of attack, right? So throughout the last year, we were in a challenge to mitigate those risks, because see, business acceleration is a topmost priority to be in the market, right? But the cyber was still on the back foot, right? But now I really thankful to the UAE government, because they have introduced a certain regulation, especially for the financial industry. And last month they have came up with a new regulation on the consumer data protection, so which really accelerated the need for having those controls. So I would say now cyber and the data control, it's no more option or no more a choice, but it is a mandate to business, because
Sure,
when it
Ravin,
comes
you're
from
absolutely right. Digital transformation is no longer a choice; it's a mandatory. In that case, what percentage of an organization's digital transformation budget should go into cybersecurity? Mohidin, can I ask you that question? What percentage should ideally go into?
Thank you, Jivan, and good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure actually to be here and part of this panel discussion. So to that point, actually, I just need to highlight a small thing that we believe that the key experience for full advantage of digital economy and digitalization is by underlining its challenges, including the cybersecurity, and ensuring the cybersecurity is actually part of the organization strategy and digital transformation initiatives. So for the percentage, actually, it's a tricky question. We believe the percentage needs to be derived from the risk management framework and the business losses, actually, because this is risk related to risk quantification somehow. So this is actually a great way to help to put a dollar sign or a percentage to that question. All right. This is actually what we believe. And I believe also that we help actually many customers doing this risk quantification when it comes to percentage during their digital transformation initiatives nowadays, which actually kicked out like more than a couple of years back.
Sabir, can I get your perspective on this? Sabir, I think you're.
I think Mr. Shabir is on mute right now.
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Yeah, greetings everybody. I'm very happy to be around here and see all the people and hope their families and all the members are safe and sound. Yeah, basically, as rightly pointed out by Mohyuddin, the percentage upon which the organization should be keeping an eye or invest in the cybersecurity. Basically, as we all understand, that internal threat is 80%. So any kind of threat to an organization is from within, it is 80%, and external threat is 20%. And what we have observed in our classification, mainly organization, they are actually investing around 70% of their cost of information security, 70% towards data protection, towards application protection, towards whatever software protection, and 30% basically towards the infrastructure protection, asset protection, and so on. So in terms of percentage, basically, if you are seeing that internally 80% threat is there from your within the organization itself, then you can understand that what kind of risk management strategy you should be having to ensure your business continuity, to ensure your goodwill towards your customers, and to ensure your entire business is sustainable.
All right, thank you. Ali, you're from the healthcare industry and literally on the front line, right? Do you think cybersecurity is now a business problem, not a tech problem?
Actually, as all my colleagues mentioned, first of all, thank you, Jeevan, for inviting me in this panel. Actually, everyone has mentioned about cybersecurity, digital transformation, which is mandated. But if you can see from the healthcare industry, yes, it is. It's kind of a threat to the organization where patient records are maintained, and this is not from now, but it is our long-term and requirement even before pandemic. Also, we were having it patient records, and we have to keep it safe. Plus, if you talk about this current pandemic, if you see and read, there are a lot of attacks happened in healthcare industries, specifically in this pandemic, where we were busy having and taking care of IT infrastructures and everything. And as Shabir Bhai has also mentioned that more threats are coming, more vulnerable users are your internal users rather than the outsiders. So outsiders doesn't know other than this ransomware and all other things where they have to just play around and get some money from the organizations. So yes, now if you talk about security security is the major part of any business, anywhere, any digital transformation, anything you have to do. You should just talking about Zulekha Hospital specifically, we have implemented some security standards of ISO 27000 since 2012. So we were trying to maintain all these things, but as everyone knows, it's you cannot, you are not 100% secured. So anyways, whatever you installed any kind of firewalls or any security systems, you have to be very much sure from your side that you are keeping business go, and because of only applications, your business should not suffer because of all your because of your security reasons. There should not be any problem to your business continuity, and show must go on. So what I feel here is yes, security is very, very, very important role of digital transformation.
Okay, let me go back to Nikolai. Nikolai, why do we need to rethink cybersecurity in the first place? What are the challenges with the existing security models? What needs to change?
Well, I actually don't necessarily think that we need to rethink the models, but the way we do stuff is something that we really need to think about. And that is because as we embark onto digital transformation, many of the technologies that we will start to utilize in our organizations have a fundamentally different way of how we secure them. So, the discussions about a traditional firewall, as an example, right, may not be applicable in an environment where we're talking about modern application frameworks, as Checkmarks were talking about earlier on, right? We need to rethink how do we shift security left. So that's one element of it, right? But it's also about understanding that the infrastructures that we're hosting our applications in, the data structures that we're hosting our data in, and the kind of data that we're hosting in order to provide the oil for our digital transformation is very, very different. And that requires a different set of capabilities. Obviously the mandate that we see coming out around consumer protection, for me, that's extremely important moving forward, because our consumers should be trusting that we can maintain and host their data in a way that's secure, and they kind of need to know what kind of deal do they go into when they supply us with their data? So that's why I think all of these data privacy frameworks that we're seeing coming out right now, they're extremely important of how do we make digital transformation acceptable to both consumers, but also to other organizations working with us.
Would you agree with that, Mohideen?
Yeah, actually, I agree with Nikolai 100%. So when it comes to security solutions, let's agree first that there is no single solution on the earth can protect from all cyber threats. And moreover, legacy solutions was not really built actually to not more than detecting or preventing cyber threats, but it was not initially designed to adapt with the new complexity of today's cybersecurity challenges. Moreover, also the sophisticated attacks and the unpredictability percentage and levels of attacks is really harming everybody. So, so basically, majority of the companies they should build their honest. We've seen many organizations using a piece by piece approach to cover their security gaps, where actually the standards has been there in the market for a long time and have been developed during a couple of years. We are talking about zero trust architecture, maybe Gartner Carta. So it's good actually to tackle all those challenges using standard frameworks and come with a holistic approach and be adaptive with your decisions when it comes to cybersecurity. Your cybersecurity decisions should be data-driven. That's why the AI and the machine learning are really built in of all the new security solutions nowadays. So these are the key topics actually related to that questions.
Shabir, what do you think about zero trust? Do you need to authenticate and verify all users, no matter where they are, inside, outside the network?
Well, definitely, as we already had a session about DevOps also, DevOps security. Basically, 0 day is actually nothing but a starting point whereby a potential hacker is aware of a flaw in your code, okay, before the developer actually realizes. So yes, of course, it is very, very important. Technologies right now in which organizations actually must be looking towards is actually threat intelligence platforms, whereby they are able to understand the all the exploits which are there and what kind of threat intelligence has to be built for the organization. Depending on that, developing the right risk intelligence strategy for the organization, ensuring that after the strategy is being solid proof, there is a alert mechanism which is established. Here, the solutions like from the portfolio of zero-day trust, those solutions are very well capable to handle any kind of threats. Also, threat monitoring is very, very important, whereby organizations, even the legal entities right now, like ISR controls or NISA controls, or the DESC organization, they are also mandating organizations to do the threat monitoring part. So threat monitoring is all about detection. It is all about response, and definitely solutions like SIM or SOAR, a combination of those involving solutions like zero-day trust, and all those things is mixing them in the right flavor and aligning them to the right risk management strategy will be definitely the right move for organizations to mitigate the current risk in the current scenarios of COVID and the current scenarios of organizational, digital transformation cycle.
Right. Prince, let me come to you, Prince. I know that you're using a lot of new technologies within Alpha. Then you're using blockchain for cross-border remittance, hybrid cloud, RPA. Do you think all these new digital technologies are inherently more secure?
If we talk about the latest technology, be it AI or blockchain and the RPA, right? So definitely, I would say at this point of time, what are the existing cyber risk, right? So these technology, if I compare with the legacy platform, definitely these technology has are more smart and the intelligent in terms of protection of the data and the cyber risk. But on the other side, right, the problem is sometimes it's not only with the technology, but in terms of uses of the technology, who actually using that technology, right? End of the day, the technology is being used by the end user, right? So if the end user, the endpoint system and the communication channel between the application and the user is not secure, the technology, the application can't itself secure the organization, right? So even let's take an example of AI. AI is nowadays is being heavily used security company, EDR or the other endpoint security solution. But on the other side, AI is also being used by the cyber criminal also. They are using a highly sophisticated attack to target the endpoints. I will not name the OEMs or the certain incident, but I personally seen some of the incident which came to the organization. Even there is if you have a good number of security in place, but still they can reach you. So I would say it is again a balance. The technology, we cannot say that every new technology coming is 100% secure, not at all. It is again a proper risk evaluation is required by the IT and the risk team, and accordingly the control should be there. Just a last example from my side. Let's talk about the quantum computing, which is in the verge of, it will be, I think in coming years, this will be used by the many organizations. But quantum computing is the biggest risk for the security, because at this point of time, we are using various encryption, which is a heart of security. We are using a big number of encryption, but with the advent of the quantum computing, this encryption needs to be changed, because this can be easily targeted, because encryption needs to be more strong. So in terms of the latest technology, my view is that there is no 100% and surety or confidence from any security that we can say that they are secure. But yes, the risks are there. This is the duty of the risk manager and the IT team to identify the risk and accordingly plan your mitigation strategy.
Mohideen, so very valid point there. The bad guys also have access to the same tools, right? AI, ML, all these new technologies. So what do you do? How do you stop them?
So I just need to come back to what Shabir mentioned and come back to this question. So he mentioned how zero trust architecture, why organizations are following those standards, because so basically this is a risk-based approach in building their security strategy and dealing with the unknown and the unpredictable. It has to be enforced with the new tools that has by built-in AI and machine learning, and maybe threat intel as well to encourage and enforce somehow the defenses internally and externally. And we have to all agree that the new platforms, with the digital transformation, are prone to a lot of security loopholes. So if the security are not really incorporated at the DevSecOps or DevOps stage, it will be a big challenge. That's why there are so many security solutions nowadays that can enforce this and help and tackle this matter.
Another challenge that I have seen is the lack of skills and experience in this market. Nicola, if you could answer that question. In such a scenario, do you recommend going the managed security services route? I'm sure you would agree with that, of course.
Of course, specifically if you buy it from us, right? No, jokes aside, right? I think creating the right process and capabilities around cybersecurity is extremely challenging for any organization where it's not the core of their business. So, it's the DNA of a cybersecurity company, a cybersecurity consultancy company like Help AG or some of the other panelists here is very, very different than if an organization are to go out and buy that kind of capability themselves or bring that kind of capability into the organization themselves. As in Help AG, right, we have more than 250 people working. That's all every single day sitting looking at cybersecurity problems, right? And of course, our managed security services team, they benefit greatly from being able to go to our pen testers and say, guys, there's this new vulnerability on Microsoft Exchange. How do we identify that in a log? And then they can work together, right? So all of that ability of being able to work across those teams and having that kind of capability within the organization is extremely important to deliver efficient response to these issues, right? And that's also why I actually think that very, very often customers are unable to apply the right kind of budget for building these kind of services themselves. And actually, I think unless you're really focused on this, and if you really have money to spend in this area, you're ultimately going to be failing in delivering your own end-to-end process in this, specifically around event management, which is to some extent just a discipline that needs to be done efficiently and well in order to stay secure.
Let me get an end user perspective on this. Ali, if I could ask you this question, what are the challenges that you face when it comes to cybersecurity? Is it budget, skills, experience, something else?
Very valid question, Jeevan. Actually, if you see in our scenario or for the organization where I'm working, so here absolutely the challenges are, first of all, there are a lot of companies who provides this cybersecurity solutions. So understanding which is really good for you, that's again a challenge, because there are a lot of companies available, as Nikolai said that, so you have to understand. Then second thing is what applications you are going to use, and what kind of security is required for that applications. That is also very important to understand on this. And third most important thing, yes, do you really have that kind of skills available in your organization, or you're going to get it outsourced from others? So this is what is important whenever you are choosing some cybersecurity companies, because see, we have used so many things, but still, you are talking about, let's say, Mimecast for the email security. Then you're talking about, ForcePoint as a firewall from outside. Then you're talking about, antiviruses in your organization. Then you cannot depend on only one, one point of solution where everything is there. So you have to really think and work out the security solution which fits to your organization, which is very important for your applications. And as Mr. Prince said, there are some regulations which came directly from the authorities, which is very good, and we also expect that they should come for healthcare also soon, where we have GDPR as in data protection law for this. But again, something which is really done to avoid cyber threats and all these attacks. This is very important. So that's my view.
Thank you. I can see there's another question again from Khalid Jalal. Very interesting question. Bad guys may act as good guys and market their AI solutions with bad intention. So is there a need to have all the AI security solutions to be regulated and monitored by a central body? What is your view? Who wants to take it from the panelists?
Absolutely right.
Yeah, Shabir.
A very good question, actually. So that is why right now the focus for a lot of government entities is specifically going on threat intelligence. So there are two things. Organization, government entities are definitely investing a lot on, and even global companies, they are having engines which is proving to be very good threat intelligence platforms. And these engines are also doing user behavior analytics. The more the known exploits, because there are tens of thousands of exploits which are known exploits. An organization, whenever they are doing a threat monitoring to detect any kind of threats, then these kind of intelligent platforms helps to filter out the real threats, filter out the false positives from the false negatives, and so on. So yes, definitely, this is what Khalid was asking. This is the basic answer, whereby the legal organizations can only, give certain controls which are divided into various security domains. And by adopting those particular security controls, as Mr. Ali also mentioned, and I will also go with Nikolai and Prince. Everybody mentioned that yes, definitely there are various domains of security, and single solution does not suffice all the requirements of a particular threat landscape. In order to ensure that all the threat landscapes are covered, we should look at holistic approach, have the right risk intelligence, risk strategy developed, ensure that there is a mechanism which is which is enabled for detection, a mechanism for protection, then a mechanism should be there for response. So these three mechanisms can be fulfilled by joining or combining multiple security solutions.
Sure. Now, I have 10 minutes to wrap this up. So let me ask final question. Do CISOs need to talk in a different language to the board? In a language they understand? Prince, you are the CISO, right? So
all right. Thank you for asking this question. This is one of my favorite questions. I would say throughout the session. See, for the CISO, the most important part of the CISO role is to first of all to understand the business, that what exactly the business line the where they are working, right? So that is the foremost requirement, because technically it is easy to get the technical understanding of the solution, right? But the main core is my management, right? From where I'm getting the budgets, right? And to identify the real risk. So for the majority of the role of a CISO falls under to the risk area and the management communication. So to meet the expectation of the management, the first and the foremost, the CISO needs to know what business is, what the business processes is, and accordingly the dire need is to translate the technical risk and the technical solution in the easiest and the simplified form to the management. Understand the risk in terms of the revenue, the risk in terms of the compliance, the risk in terms of the reputational damage. So these are the holistic risk which needs to be translated. And I think that is something which every CISO must acquire this skill set.
Mohideen, do you think quantifying risk is the key here?
It's very important. And thanks for Prince to bringing this up. And thank you for this question. So again, it's a holistic approach, risk quantification. It's all about the business, especially with the digital era. And we are talking a lot about the customer experience and how important it is, how the business can leverage the existing plus the digital transformation initiatives to expand their reach, their market. So it's all about risk quantification. Any movement towards the digital era, it's really tied up and married with a cyber threat and attack services increasing. So again, risk quantification, it's really, really important. And when you say risk quantification is very linked and intertwined, actually linked with the business. And there are so many solutions, but again, it's all about the risk-based methodology that the organization will tackle using then the technology as, Prince mentioned. So it's all about the business, then technology will come after that.
Nikolai, what is your advice to the CISO community here?
Well, I actually don't think that it's just us, the CISO community, that has a problem. I also think the board actually also has a responsibility, as they are going to start making business decisions that is going to be more and more important to how they operate because of digital transformation. It's also extremely important that the board also gets an understanding about some of these issues. So I actually think that let's call it digital literacy or whatever you want to call it, right? But I think it actually applies to many levels. So it's not just us dumbing down the problem, it's also about so that, putting it in layman's terms, I think as an industry, we're very good at complicating stuff in cybersecurity, right? But also about being able for the board to be able to understand these issues in a different way is also extremely important. So I think it's kind of an important skill that needs to be developed at multiple levels within an organization.
All right, you can have the last word, Shabir. Do we need to make everyone responsible for security?
Yeah, sure. See, basically, Prince very nicely explained, and what I believe that organization today, they should not be working in silos when it comes to the topic of cybersecurity. So, as rightly said, today organization are departmentalized in terms of you have legal department, admin department, marketing department, or sales or core business application department, and so on. And then there are the IT departments. And you see within the IT departments also now there are units for taking care of the infrastructure, taking care of digital transformation initiatives, another unit taking care of information security separately, another taking care of any kind of cloud initiatives. So these are silos. Now the right strategy for a CISO or for any kind of a chief CXO should ensure that the cybersecurity should be at the core, or it should be embedded across all the separate units, so that the silos should be removed and cybersecurity initiatives should be completely across the organization, embedded in the system, by which we can call it as a cybersecurity by design. And here the CTO itself should be, like very well connected to whomsoever is responsible for cybersecurity, whether it is a CISO, what you can call n number of names. But this particular CISO should be responsible for ensuring that the whole architecture across all the units or the entire organization, this right security architecture is established. Alert mechanisms are also established to monitor, and then the response mechanism is also established. So this is what should be the role of the cybersecurity in the current right model for cybersecurity. It should be embedded at the core of the organization.
That's it. Thanks a lot for your time, gentlemen. Really good discussion. I'm sure our audience has enjoyed this. I don't see there are any questions, so it's time to wrap it up. So thanks a lot again for joining us today. And thanks to our sponsors. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jeevan. Thanks to the audience for listening. It was very, very pleasant.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.